Let's take a look at string indexing and slicing. Indexing strings in Python is a way to access each character individually. It is important to note that indexing in Python is zero-based. So what does this mean? Let's take a look. Here we have the string Dublin. Each character in our string has a corresponding index. The first character, D, is at index 0. U is 1, B is 2, L is 3, and so on. It is important to note that the last index is the length of the string minus 1. We can also use negative integers to move from the end of the string backwards. In this instance, we do not use zero-based. It is minus 1 for the last character of the string, minus 2 for the second last, minus 3 for the third last, and so on. Let's head over to PyScripter and look at string indexing in action. We will use the Python interpreter window. Let's create a string variable called text and set this to equal Dublin is the capital city of Ireland, and hit enter. Now let's access the first character of our text string. We saw earlier that this was index 0, and how we access that is by calling the variable and using square brackets and putting in the index number between the square brackets. We hit enter and we can see we are returned D. If we wanted the third character, which is B, we would put in 2. So 0 is D, 1 is U, and 2 is B. 0, 1, 2. We'll execute that line of code and we can see we are returned B. We can also work backwards with our indexing. We can call text and put in minus 1 as our index, and we can see we get the D at the end of Ireland at the end of our string. Let's try minus 4 and we can see we get the L. Indexing lends its hand to slicing. Let's take a look. In its simplest form, string slicing extracts a substring from the beginning of a specified index to an endpoint, which is another specified index. We'll call our text variable and we'll add our square brackets. And we'll add in an index of 1, followed by a colon and an index of 4. The 1 is the starting index and 4 is the ending index. Now what do you think is going to be returned as the substring? Let's run and take a look. You can see we were returned UBL. But hang on a second. We stated index 4, which is the 5th character. Why were we not returned UBLI? This is very important with slicing. The second digit here, 4, is really 4 minus 1, which is 3. So it's only going to include up until the index before the stop index. Let's take a look at that once more. We're going to extract Dublin from this string. So we're going to start at index 0. We want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means we need to put in a stop of 6 and a start of 0. So we're going to start at the beginning of the string and we're going to return all up until the 5th character. I'll hit enter and we can see we returned Dublin. Just going to add back in our text as we progress down the screen. In our next example, we're going to show that we can omit the start and end index in the slice. We'll add our text variable. Instead of putting 0, we're just simply going to put a colon, and we're not even going to put an end index. Running this will return the entire string, as we can see. If we also put in a start of 0, it'll return the entire string without adding the end index. We could also put in, say, 6, and we'll get from index 6 to the end of the string. We can also omit the start and just put in an end. And we can see we get from the start of the string to the 5th character. There is a little extra we can do with slicing, and that is called stepping. Stepping basically allows us to step over characters. We'll call our text variable and we'll put in our colon. So we're saying from the start to the end of the string. We're going to put in another colon and we're going to add a 2. What's going to happen here is we're going to return the first character, skip the second, return the third, skip the fourth, return the fifth. So basically returning the character at every odd index, including the first at 0. And you can see that is exactly what we got. Now I want you to do a little further research on stepping. There is a way that you can reverse a string using stepping. So over in your workbook, there is a treasure hunt for you to find out how. For the last part of this lesson, we're going to find out what happens if you put in an index that is out of the range of the length of the string. Let's call our text variable and let's stick in an index of 100. And we can see we get a very aptly named index error. Now we'll look at error handling in a later section of this course. We're also going to look at built-in functions. For now I want to show you one called length, which is shortened to len. So if we look at len and we use parentheses and we put in our text variable and hit enter, we get that the length is 37. And as we know, the last index in a string is the length minus 1. So we could call our text variable and we could stick in length of our text and put in a minus 1. So this is going to be 37 minus 1, which is 36, which is going to give us the character at index 36 from our text variable. And you can see we get the last letter, which is a lowercase d. In this lesson, we saw string indexing and slicing in action. You now know that indexing begins at 0 and increments by 1 up until the end of the string, which is the length of the string minus 1 for the final index. We can also traverse backwards through the string by supplying in a negative integer. So minus 1 is the last character, minus 2 is the second last, and so on. Make sure to check out your workbook, add in your own notes, and complete the treasure hunt.